My brother-in-law and sister-in-law are getting married here really soon, and they needed an arbor to get married under. I felt honored that they came and asked me to build them one. And I wanted to make it something that would last, that they could display in their backyard for a long time. And what that meant was building it out of the proper materials to keep it outdoors for all this time. And that meant something that was bug and rot resistant, and my go-to for that is cedar. You could also use pressure-treated lumber, but for me, nothing beats cedar as far as looks, and also the scale of an arbor, the weight can just hit super heavy with pressure-treated pine. I've still yet to build my miter saw station for my shop proper, and I had this new Milwaukee cordless saw in for review, so I chose to use it to do a material breakdown. I also used a 2x4 offcut to make a little stand so that I could support the longer material without it popping up into the blade. If you want to read my impressions on these tools, as well as a summary of all the tools that I use in this build, along with the free plans for the arbor, you can check those out on my website, Wood.Work.LIFE.com. I've linked to that down below. One of the cool features on this saw I'll highlight here in the video, though, is that it has a shadow line marker as opposed to a laser. The nice thing about a shadow line marker versus a laser is it shows you exactly where the blade's going to go by dropping a shadow from the blade directly onto your workpiece. This way you can trust it and actually know where your kerf's going to go. I do like that about this saw. The full cut list for all these cuts that you see me making on these 4x4s and 2x4s, as well as the whole material list, are in the plans on my website, Wood.Work.LIFE.com. Alright, so now with our full cut list broken down, it was time to start assembly. And the easiest way that I've found to assemble this is to start with a story stick. This way both sides are identical. I used a scrap piece of MDF I had laying around the shop and just draw out all the dimensions that I needed for assembly. The 3/4 inch depth of the story stick also functioned as a good spacer to keep the 2x4s evenly spaced off the faces of the 4x4s. Once I had all the 2x4s in place, I clamped the whole thing together with one clamp at each 2x4 to sync it all together so I could then add screws to permanently attach it. Since the screw heads were going to be exposed, I used a little marking jig to mark the positions for each screw so they looked consistent on the side of the arbor when it was all finished. I then used this 3/8 inch impact wrench to drive in outdoor rated 6-inch lag bolts into each of the 2x4s to provide some permanent attachment to the structure. The instructions for these lag bolts said to use an 18 volt or higher impact wrench, and I think this 12 volt was plenty strong. The one issue it had is driving all of these lag bolts. I think there was like 16 or 32 of them. It did run out of battery about 3/4 the way through assembling the two side pieces. After replacing the battery and getting the two side pieces assembled, I added a couple of strips of 2x4s to the edge just to sort of dress it up. I don't know where all the footage for that went, but I trimmed them up on the bandsaw, and then I just attached them with a couple of brad nails. Sorry for the interruption, and I've also apologized for my terrible voice. I'm getting over something. You can thank living in a household with two snotty kids for that, but that's besides the point. This video, the Arbor Build video, is part of the largest collaboration in YouTube history. It was started by Mr. Beast and Mark Robert to raise $20 million to plant 20 million trees around the world. We're partnering with the Arbor Day Foundation, and you can check out our website at TeamTrees.org. We're trying to raise money as much as we can to plant as many trees as we can by 2020. 20 million trees is the goal, so $20 million is the goal. I've kicked it off with a head start of $100 of my own money, and I'm also giving you guys the plans from this video for free, so go build your own arbors and support trees around the world. I feel like as woodworkers, we owe just a little bit more. So if this video has inspired you to help to contribute, go and donate some money. Go and plant a tree in your own backyard, or if you aren't in a position to donate any money or don't have any time to plant any trees, or if you live in an apartment or whatever, go click one of the videos, the TeamTrees videos in the recommended tab. Throw TeamTrees up in the search bar and go find a TeamTrees video on YouTube. Click on it, like it, comment on it, do all that. We're trying to take over the trending page of TeamTrees videos. We want this collaboration to be the most positive collaboration in the history of the platform. That's all I have to say about that. Thank you for bearing with me, and back to the video.
After finishing the sides, it was time to get on to the trellis part of the arbor. This I was going to use two 2x6s to make the long pieces, and then some decorative 2x4s to assemble the top. I wasn't sure exactly how many 2x4s I was going to use across the top, so I laid it out on my shop floor just to kind of get all the cosmetics figured out. I also cut out a template to mark all the curves, and then I cut those out with a jigsaw before moving on to cutting out the 2x4s. I think I like this jigsaw now, but I think I need some better blades. I snapped a couple while trying to cut these curves, and I wasn't moving very quickly at all. After carefully positioning the 2x6s on the floor, I clamped them together and then drove in some more lag bolts to secure them permanently. With the main structure of the trellis assembled, it was time to lay out for the lap joints that were going to join these top supports onto the 2x6s. Due to the bow and construction lumber, I wanted to make sure that I correctly positioned these before I cut out any joinery, so I marked out the exact positions where each of these 2x4s would be positioned on top of the trellis. With each 2x4 in its final position, I used the edges of the 2x6 to mark the material that I would need to remove at the bandsaw, and then with a chisel. I then used a speed square to extend these lines to create nice square edges for what would become half lap joints. You could easily do these with a jigsaw, a circular saw, or a table saw, but I was kind of getting excited to keep using my new bandsaw, so I brought these over to my bandsaw to get them roughed out, and then I went over to my bench with a chisel to clear out the bulk of the material. It's been a while since I've worked with any cedar, and I forgot how soft it was and how easy it is to clear out with a chisel. I might do some more like outdoor joinery projects, like maybe a mailbox or a swing set. I don't know, could be fun. But anyways, I knocked out all of the waste from these lap joints using a chisel and just a couple blows from my dead blow hammer. Since each of these pieces had just a little bit of variability in it, I made sure to number them as I marked them and put them all back in the marked spaces so that way they fit perfectly. It's surprisingly easy to clear all of this waste with a chisel, so if you ever wanted to practice hand tools, cedar is definitely a great place to get started. It's very rewarding. With all of the joinery cut, I then moved on to cutting the OGs on the edges of the trellis pieces. Each of the 2x4s received an OG on each edge. I cut a template for this to mark it out, and then I cut these out at the bandsaw. It's been a long time since I've had my bandsaw in my shop, so it's nice to get feedback from people on Instagram and here on YouTube that are kind of coaching me through some of the techniques that I may have slipped on, and then also they're giving me some good recommendations on setting up the blade so that it tracks properly through curve cuts like this. Like my friend Caleb over at You Can Make This Too sent me over some good tips on how to properly align the gullets of the blades with the ridge on the saw wheels. I am just working with cedar on this project, so I'm not really sure if it worked out better, but it did feel a little bit smoother going through the cuts. With all the OGs cut, this thing was pretty much ready to assemble. All I had to do was align these up with the numbered spaces I had laid out previously, and then drive 2 screws, one into the top of each of the 2x6s through the 2x4 pieces that I'd cut out. This thing is really meaty all put together, but honestly, since it's cedar, it's maybe only 60 or 70 pounds all assembled. So it was pretty easy to get outside. I made the assembly a little bit easier by setting up 2 of my ladders ahead of time, and then I could just lean it up against the ladders to assemble it. But I guess if you have friends, you might use friends, but I just built it by myself. The horizontal support 2x4 and the furthest outside 2x4 with the OG, the decorative piece, are designed to sort of create a little bit of a positive stop. And I did this for both the design and also for my brother, so it'd be a little bit easier to assemble on site because he's not really into woodworking as far as I am, and all he has is really a drill to put everything together. This just makes it super easy. The trellis at the end of the day is only held into the posts using 8 3-inch screws, so it's really mostly the mechanical connection between the posts and those decorative pieces that's going to give it all its strength. I really like the way this thing looks in natural cedar, but the bride wanted it to be a darker finish. And since cedar's oily and wouldn't really take stain all that consistently, I chose to use a deck finish, just as transparent of a deck finish as I could get. Then I would spray it on and then follow up with a brush to get a nice smooth and consistent finish. Personally, I like the way that cedar looks just aged, so I probably would have left it without a finish if I were to put it in my own backyard. I like that gray kind of antique look that cedar finishes to. But this deck stain could be refreshed every couple years, and this thing would last a really long time.
Thanks for watching, and I hope that the free plans down in the description will help to motivate you to be a little more generous with the TeamTrees.org initiative. Again, go to TeamTrees.org. We're trying to raise $20 million to plant 20 million trees around the world by 2020. So do whatever you can to help, whether that be hashtagging TeamTrees, taking a picture of yourself planting a tree in your own backyard, or donating to the TeamTrees.org website, or just watching the videos in the recommended tab that are from the TeamTrees creators. Clicking like, dropping a comment, hey, hashtagging TeamTrees wherever you can. We want this whole thing to blow up and blow up every trending tab on every social media platform. Hashtag TeamTrees on Twitter, hashtag TeamTrees on YouTube, Instagram, wherever it is. We really just want to plant 20 million trees by 2020. And hopefully with the hundreds of creators that we've gotten together to try to do this, we're going to reach that goal. Again, remember, free plans on my website down in the description for this project to help inspire you to donate. And also remember to keep your tools sharp and keep your mind sharper.